Hello, everyone trying to learn some world history today. Today is Thursday for those of you who need me to keep track of the days for you. Um, what a week! What a time! What a time in our lives, right? So I'm sure you all are aware that the rest of the school year is going to be online. So we'll try to get used to this format, but oh well, what you going to do about it? So we will make the best of what we have with this, and we'll continue on. Today we are going to talk about the impacts of imperialism. So, if you guys looked it up, imperialism is really when a country takes over another region or an established country or another country that's not established yet. And they take it over either using military power or influence through economics. So it's not necessarily a super forceful takeover, but what they'll do is they'll offer something necessary to them so that they keep on obeying what they're saying because they're giving them the power to actually make something of themselves and have money. So, not always military takeover. Yes, there is military takeover for imperialism, but it's really trying to extend power and domain into other countries. So, what we're really going to do today is we're going to look at the impact of imperialism. We're trying to keep a big view on this. So, normally we would actually break this up into several sections. We would actually go with each country and see um, their overall grasp for imperialism. But we're not going to do that because we're trying to look at big picture things. And I actually think today we're going to look at not just big picture, but we're going to just look at pretty much pictures today. So we'll see how that goes. So I thought one of the best ways to understand the impacts of imperialism was to literally just look at how it was impacting the rest of the world. So this first map is going to be where imperialism took place in the world. If you look at the key down here, oh, I don't know where it is on the screen for you. The key down here, it will actually show you which countries took over which places. So, as you can see, the overall grasp of imperialism was pretty far reaching, especially if you look over at Africa, like France and Belgium, and everyone that could possibly get a piece of Africa was doing that. Besides the United States, actually, if you look at the United States, they pretty much only took over the Philippines. Remember, the United States had a huge amount of their own natural resources, so why would they go to another country for them when we could just enslave the native people here or have slaves there to actually farm the natural resources? So if you look at this, I would say Great Britain and France have probably the biggest reach here. But Germany was a part of that. Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, India, or Italy. All of these different places were part of this imperialism. Um, so the next are just going to be pictures that I think will explain a lot better the impacts of imperialism than I could in just telling you about it. So, this first part is actually an African mine. So, these Africans were not necessarily slaves. So, a lot of them left and started to go to the gold mines because it was an easy way to make a better life for themselves. So, they left their traditional houses and their traditional places that they worked. And they actually joined these Europeans to actually gold mine. So this brought about a lot of new actual towns instead of villages, and it really impacted Africa for looking for gold. The next picture is just, I thought, was a very interesting stereotypical picture that you might see from imperialism. So I thought this was a really good one to just show kind of how the Europeans felt about the native people. So these are this is in India, so this is from the British. So that is interesting. The next is actually, this is a diamond mine. This is a depiction of a diamond mine. I actually put the descriptor down here. So this is in South Africa in 1872. So look at these working conditions. Could you imagine trying to mine diamonds out of this? It would be insane. The working conditions probably not great at all. And look at, they just had like sticks and pulley systems for a lot of this. So um, you're going to notice a theme to this, and I think you'll start noticing it more and more and more. But a lot of this is obviously looking for natural resources. So that's why we're talking about it along with the Industrial Revolution. Because remember, the Industrial Revolution needed factories, and factories need cheap raw materials. So that is why they started imperialism throughout the rest of the world. Why these other countries in Europe or these more established countries really needed to take over other countries to get cheap natural resources for their factories. The next one is another thing that happened during during this imperialistic time is this is a depiction of a Methodist church in Angola. So and they actually were in like Sunday school, and the missionaries were overreaching, trying to spread Christianity. So this might kind of remind you of an upbeat crusade, honestly. Like these were people using their resources, trying to use their resources to spread Christianity. So maybe they weren't forcing it as much as they were during the Crusades. Like they weren't torturing them to do this, but they were kind of making it almost mandatory, saying like, "Oh, you are a savage if you do not go to church. Like, if you do not believe our European ideals, like look how great we are. Look how much better we are than you. And if you are not using these Christian ideals and the values that we have, then you are not as good as we are." So it really did drive them. It kind of guilted them into going to church. Also, the most influential people were Christians, and they kind of influenced where people would go. Obviously, you were going to try to be around the people who are most influential. So again, here is the Germans taking possession of Cameroon. So again, taking it over for natural resources. The Germans used military might to take it over. As you can see on the left-hand side, that's the German military, and they are actually just straight up taking over um, parts of Africa at this point. So this is 1881. I mean, it's really not that long ago if you really think about it. Um, not long ago at all. So it's a really interesting development, and I thought it was interesting to put how Germany was taking over using their superior military at this point already. So I threw this in there here. I just thought this was a really great way to describe, yet again, how the impact of imperialism was for them. So I'll read this real quick. I think it's really impactful on how they thought about them being in these countries. They really thought about it as them doing these other countries a favor. Like it's kind of insane to think about, but these people really believe this. So let me read this for you. As yet, the Congo Basin is a blank and a fruitless waste, a desolate and unproductive area. It has been our purpose to fill this blank with life, to redeem this waste, to plant and sow what the dark man may gather, to vivify the wide, wild lands so long forgotten by Europe. But cursed be he or they who, animated by clueless jealousy and a spirit of mischief, will compel us to fire our station, destroy our work so conspicuously begun and abandoned Africa to its pristine helplessness and savagery. So this is really talking about people who did not agree with the Europeans being in Africa. This guy was like, if we abandon our work, we're like leaving them without anything. We had like this barren land, and we're just gonna abandon them back to their barren land before we got here. Like, mind blowing that people were even living there beforehand. So it really shows this European superiority complex that they had. This next one is the Africans bringing ivory out of South Africa. So all of those are tusks coming out of South Africa. So ivory became a really big thing in pianos and teeth, in just having the ivory from these elephants. So all of those horns came off of elephants, and it just shows the first impact of poaching in Africa. So remember, all of this was for resources. Think about it. All of these pictures that we've seen have all been for natural resources, or at least resources they could get. The next few are advertisements. So check this advertisement out. This advertisement was for Pear soap, and it says the white man's burden is through teaching the virtue of cleanliness. So they really, I mean, could you imagine this being on anything nowadays? Like this white man, like giving this poor, darker skinned person soap as a advertisement. Like, oh man, Pear soap, we're doing God's work by teaching cleanliness to all of the savages of the world. It's super crazy. This one's a cartoon of um, a British cartoonist just showing the savage Chinese, the heathen Chinese, and all of the superpowers that were trying to help out the heathen Chinese. So that was a really interesting one. This depiction was also super interesting. You would think, man, must be Egypt, but this is just showing the vast amount of resources that we were taking out of West Africa. So this is just nuts being stacked and piled that are being taken out of Africa. Really crazy, the natural resources they were plundering during um, this imperialism period of the world. Again, this is the French taking over Vietnam. So here we have the French capturing Vietnam through military force again. So not always for economic reasons that they were doing this. Here's a brand that we've all heard of. This is Lipton iced tea. It's still around today, but could you imagine, again, just like think about these advertisements if we had to see them in stores nowadays? Like, look at the slaves that are picking all of these tea leaves, and it's just like showing quality. Like, oh, we get our tea leaves like best quality, hand picked by the people who grow them. Um, Pretty crazy. So that's Lipton iced tea. That's Lipton tea. And then here's Egypt. This is the Suez Canal. So we never really think about Egypt being taken over in this, but here are a bunch of yachts passing through the Suez Canal. This is really showing like how much stuff they were bringing in, all of these resources. We think of the industrial period as just like this huge boom for the world and like this huge great thing of factories cranking out clothes, cranking out better lives for people. But we forget that those better lives were not for all people. These better lives were for the people of Europe or of the United States at this period of time. Um, has much really changed? Like, are we still taking natural resources from these places to make our lives better? It's debatable, right? Think about it. So, that is our slideshow for today. I just really wanted to show you the impacts of this imperialism and kind of the impacts of the Industrial Revolution through just some pictures, just some depictions, and I think it's a really good way to look at it. We're coming up on a period in history where we can really take a look at pictures, and we can really take a look at actual pictures and see how the world was working at that period of time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will have you go ahead and comment in the Google Doc that I post, or the Google form that I posted. The key word today is Scooby Doo. So in that video, or in that Google form, go ahead and write Scooby Doo as the keyword to just show me that you check this out. Tomorrow I'll be looking for a quiz. It's going to be comprehensive. So I'm really just looking for your guys' answers on things. I'm just going to ask you a few simple questions about the Industrial Revolution and imperialism. So don't get too stressed out about it. Definitely focus on like your math and your English classes right now. I've heard a lot of you are struggling with those online. So I hope you all have a really good Thursday. And I won't really talk to you guys until Monday again. So be looking for another lecture on Monday. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Try to get outside. Try to get outside. Maybe in the Google form, tell me a joke, because that's always fun. Miss Atherton asked for some jokes the other day, and she got some really good ones. So have a great weekend, guys, if I don't talk to you. Enjoy yourselves.